Welcome to Real Estate Investing Open Kimono, a Home 365 podcast where we discuss real estate biggest traps and failures with brutal honesty and radical transparency. I'm Daniel Shaked, the founder and CEO of Home 365, and here we dissect what goes wrong so you can sidestep the pitfalls and make smarter moves. No fluff, no hype, no sales speech, just the raw truth, everything you need to know in order to win. Let's dive in. Today with me is Dani Beit-Or. Dani Beit-Or is a seasoned real estate investor and the founder and CEO of Simply Do It. With over 20 years of experience specializing in U.S. residential real estate, originally from Israel, where I'm from as well, Dani transitioned from the engineering and high-tech backgrounds into real estate investing, navigating more than 5,000 investment transactions across multiple markets. Known for his personalized approach to investment strategy, Dani helps investors from beginners to experienced grow and optimize their portfolios. Through extensive education programs, seminars, and mentoring, he shares practical insights and lessons learned, including critical takeaways from navigating the 2008 market crash all the way to current days. Dani, I'm so happy to see you here, man. I don't know, people don't know, but when I first moved to United States, it was like, 10 years ago, you were the first person that inspired me a lot. I was learning everything I could about real estate investing. And I don't know if you know that, but I actually purchased a very sophisticated Excel you've built back then, like 10 years back, to analyze on the back of a napkin various real estate deals. I have it still with myself. You look surprised. Probably don't even remember that.
My Excel analysis?
It was your Excel analysis.
Really?
Yes, exactly. So it was
Daniel,
amazing.
I get the chills from this introduction. I get nice introductions, but this is so personal and inspired you. And wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
Perfect.
wow.
Look, I was learning. I was trying to learn as much as I can about.
No, I'm done. You listen.
You're done. I got goosebumps. Okay.
I
Cool.
do. 10 years ago, purchased my Excel. Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Involved
For
in a
real
little
money.
bit. Good, yeah. Good. Excellent.
Good. Okay.
For the kind
Look,
word.
I was trying to learn as much as I can, being an international investor, looking first at building a property management company in the United States, but actually I wanted to be myself an investor. And I was trying to understand the different markets, the different things, all the possible things. And I stumbled upon you. You were very active back then at Silicon Valley, where I started the company. And I learned a lot from you. So look, go ahead and tell me a little bit about Simply Do It, about yourself, about your background, and we'll take it from here.
Yeah.
Okay?
So, wow. It's amazing to say that and inspired you and use the Excel. I love it. I love hearing it. I'm glad that, that's the whole purpose. You and I, obviously, we know each other for probably around 10 years or so. We talked many times in the past. I do have to return a courtesy by saying the only person in the past 10 years, actually, I should say more than 10 years, that called me up one day out of nowhere and said that he has some crazy ideas about property management was you. And my initial reaction was another one, so I have to admit. But then I said, you know what? I love listening. And then you start outlining the vision when Home 365 was just, I guess, incubating, or maybe more than just an idea. And your outline, I was memorized. I still remember where I stood, having this conversation, letting you walk through. And I think my reaction was, listen, if you accomplish a fraction of what you just told me, it would be amazing. And you had this much of a vision. And I told you, if you do half of it or less, it will be amazing, because this industry is so positioned still. Our conversation that I'm talking about was more than 5 years ago, probably 7 years ago. I don't know exactly. I still think that there's one entity that I see, and I am in this, property management side a lot. And, we've done many things on our end as well. And one entity, one company that I know that are really changing changing the playing field completely, and it's amazing, right? So good for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. One thing I blame you though, you were not stubborn enough to tell me don't start with it.
Ah.
No, I'm just joking.
I
I'm just
apologize.
joking.
I should have. Yeah, I know how this.
You should have. You should have.
Listen, I moved to the States. I started investing, while being a young engineer in Europe, 2002. I packed my bags and my wife and my bike and moved to the States in 2004 with only one mission in life, was to dive into real estate. That's it. I didn't see anything else in my mind. And I continued investing a little bit and worked with others, helping them invest. It kind of grew from that. I was able to accomplish my personal financial goals of 5 years within 2.5 years. So that was really nice. And then 2008 came, completely changed things around. For me, the 2008 crash was not, it was devastating financially, emotionally, stress, everything. No, I'm not going to you said early, this is not sugarcoating session. This is not harsh, but raw and reality, R&R. But the 2008 crash forced me to dive into the details of everything, like nuances on situation, on there's so many different state laws regarding different situations. I always remember, I actually found out that there's a different foreclosure implications if you are purchase money foreclosing on, or if it's a cash out refinance foreclosure situation, right? In Arizona, which is different than Alabama, whatever.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I'm just, it's not that interesting, but I had to dive in. And that actually elevated my expertise, knowledge, experience. And everything I did back then everything was amplified because I had multiple properties, but because I was engaging with a lot of investors, everything I did, I always, in the back of my mind, I learned something I will share with my clients, with my investors. Many of them are in a similar situation. And I remember so many like sad conversation, devastating conversation with my clients and saying, listen, you can do it, and sharing, hey, you can do this. Have you thought about this? And then sometimes they will say, hey, I've done this about short sale. Did you know that you can do something like, and I've gained that knowledge as well. And that elevated my knowledge of real estate and nuances. But also the most important thing is in 2010-ish, I decided that I need to build everything from the ground up, from scratch. One of those pillars of operational pillars is the Excel you're talking about, which we still use. I'm in version 6 now. You're probably in version 1.
Really?
I'm in version 6. The core of it is...
As a first subscriber, don't I receive not entitled for like an upgrade?
At the time, you bought the version instead of the life,
Got it. Live subscription.
Out of a special a friend, I will share with you. The core of it is exactly the same. We just beautified it, add you more things. So the engine, the core analysis engine, still the same, right? It's how it's perceived, how to use it around it. I'll share with you gladly. So that's kind of brought me to the place where I started simply doing everything on a canvas. How do I go about analyzing properties different than what I did before? You just got the end of it. How do I go about evaluating? What's my protocol about selecting in a market, selecting a team? There's a process on selecting a team. I work with like property managers and lenders. Property managers and there's a process of onboarding a team, right? There's two different things. And then how do we support them? So we support a lot of those teams on an ongoing basis because my philosophy is if I have a good realtor and they understand what we're doing, if I help that realtor do their job better, the entire system gets better. And the same thing with the traditional property managers. I will say, because this is relevant for you, I am a living organism of scars, of never stop being frustrated with the traditional property management operation out there. And I'll be honest, some of the property manager that I work with are what you would probably qualify in this industry, the better ones, the good ones, right? All of them are good. I don't have bad ones, but even the good ones will never, none of them will, you'll see that they're like superstars, right? And I do have great ones that do a terrific job, but there's always it's a challenging industry to be in. So maybe this is your opportunity to get inspired again and run, Daniel, run, move out.
I heard on one of your recent podcasts, I think the last one maybe, there was a section you were talking about property managers, and you said like you can't understand why people even do this type of non-rewarding
Unbelievable
job, right?
Yes.
It's so non-rewarding. You are sandwiched in between the tenant and the owner, and sometimes you are stuck with a very problematic property, and the property manager can do that much. So we'll chat about that going forward when we touch the property management aspect maybe, but keep on. I'm curious about the journey.
Yeah. So basically after the crash, we started, the focus has always been buy long-term rental properties, typically is out of state. I've been helping our clients buy in Oklahoma City, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, greater Nashville, Birmingham, Alabama, St. Louis, Kansas City, Atlanta, Tampa, Orlando. I may be missing one or two or three. Phoenix for many years. And usually the model has always been long-term, buy and hold, nice residential, mostly single-family homes, duplexes, fourplexes. And over those years, I have a tendency to in my personality, build into what I call, what someone told me, actually, some consultant said, it's called challenging the status quo. And me challenging the status quo has always been challenging it towards others, like property managers, right? Or different opportunities that we're doing, but also internally, meaning I keep challenging myself and never rest on just because we've done something in a certain way, we should continue doing it exactly the same. And the markets are evolving. So just as a kind of funny little anecdote, for 20 years, I always avoided investing in greatly creative financing transactions such as subject to.
Okay.
That I am well familiar of subject to, if I can explain what that is if we need, but it's like a type of subcategory of seller financing. And I always saw, because of my knowledge, the complexity. So I was always afraid of it. I've done my first subject to deal in August. So I actually experienced some of those smaller challenges, not the major ones. I joke that, I'm under contract right now for a VA loan assumption, right? So another deal, that something I've been aware for more than 20 years that I've never done. I've bought another property a month ago with a seller leaseback and an option to buy the property from me in 2 years at a set price, and I'm already evicting that tenant because he's not, like a month, and I already filed for eviction, which is not
creative.
nice. And I don't care because I bought that property $120,000 below market value. So fine, I don't mind evicting. I mean, I wish he would be okay, but he's not. So I'm making those examples because I joke. See, I laugh at myself. It only took me 20 years to build up the confidence to do a subject to VA loan and complicated deals. And every time I do those complicated financing deals that I'm right now dealing with, more of them like this, is I always see it as I need to fully understand, experience myself, and then I can systemize it, I can prep it, I can understand it better, and then I can go, if it works, and offer it as another option for my clients to buy properties.
So let me ask you. So you're basically helping people for quite many years to tap into real estate investing. Some of them are, as I mentioned in my introductory talk, are new people. Some of them are not. If I'm, let's say, a remote investor, let's say I'm an international guy from, I don't know, from Israel, from Japan, from Europe, from whatever, and I come across you, what would be the type of property that you would recommend me to buy? And in which type of market? Not the specific city, but which type of a market would you advise me to go?
So there's two layers here of the decision making, whether you're local or out of the country, is if you're a beginner, from my experience, based on my 20 plus years, 5,000, and many hundreds of clients, in the process.
You have all the experience in the world.
So yeah. I don't, first of all, I don't come with my own set of what is the right or wrong. I just set the framework. I'll let the clients I help the client determine what is the most suitable avenue path for them. But usually with the beginners, I like to recommend to keep it simple, right? especially if you're out of the country, there's so many gaps: language, time, culture, who pays for what kind of a thing, who may manage it. Like, I know that if you have a property in somewhere else, the tenant may be carrying more of the burden of the property and have, for example, if you mentioned Israel. In Israel, it's very common that the tenant, the security
pays for everything.
Deposit is not a deposit. He's giving you like so much security that in a way, if you think about it, it's in his best interest to take care of and not to break the lease, because that's going to cost him a lot of money. Here, 1 month rent, maybe 2 months if we're lucky, maybe 2.5, or whatever, right? So even if we are able to get more out of the situation here, then the tenant is risking 2 months of rent. Most of the tenants it's not life-threatening. If this was 10 months of rent or, X of the security deposit, they will behave differently. So that creates a little bit of a difference. Now, it doesn't mean all tenants are bad. I'm just saying the leverage.
What would you recommend? What would you recommend to me? Let's say I'm an international guy, and I've never done it before. What type of property?
Let's buy a nice single-family home in a nice community. Nice. Maybe brand new from the builder, maybe up to 20 or 30 years old, in the suburbs, good schools, very straightforward. You know what? The American dream, simple as you have it in your mind, I have it in my mind. Those are the houses that I like. We keep it simple.
So you know what? I really rely into that, and I accept it so much because there are a lot of gurus, what I call them. They teach you everything about, the most riskiest properties. Go for Section 8 in Detroit, in Chicago. Go for the lowest property you can find, $60,000, whatever. And amazing excels. You see like 12%, 10%, 8%, whatever cap rates. Crazy numbers. This Excel has amazing ROI to it. But there is a reality. And a lot of those gurus don't explain the reality, what it means really Section 8, what it really means, the tough parts of a city.
Absolutely.
What type of hell can happen? Like, do you have examples?
Absolutely.
Probably from your turn.
Yeah, listen, I always stayed away. I love boring real estate, right? Boring real estate means I can live my life wherever I live with work and family and in whatever life activity. And the real estate is more passive-ish in my life. I don't, I'm not day-to-day or week-to-week kind of issues. And, there's some weeks are busier, some weeks are not, but it's kind of more in the background and I can easily duplicate it, right? I can buy multiple such properties. What I see a lot of people do is they are attracted, especially investors, attracted to the lower-end property, which is usually an older property in a more challenging kind of a neighborhood, Section 8 or not, with less of a stable kind of an income tenant. And that is a big piece of a noisy system. Now, you got to understand, like you said, if you understand that this kind of an investment is not bad, I'm not making it sound bad. It's just how much noise in the system you will have, right? I call it, the noise in the system is also the emotional ROI that nobody calculates, right? Noise in the system means a lot of problems, more issues, more problems, such as maybe turnover, late tenant, maybe evictions, older properties. When there is a repair, many times it's not just replacing a water heater. You need to elevate the base of the water heater and put the strap and the expansion tank. And all of a sudden, a $900 water heater, it's a $1,500. Or same thing with the roof, because the building codes change and no licensed person will do it without updating the building codes. When you're far from the property and those situations keeps coming, but they don't show it on Facebook and they don't show it on Instagram, there's only one entity that's in fault. And it's not me, the owner. It's always the property manager's fault. Always. And I keep telling people, why did you buy the wrong property that you set up yourself, not for failure, but for this kind of a setting? No wonder you think the property manager is clueless and worthless and a crook. It's wrong. You bought the wrong property. You should be expecting those problems. Now you're playing someone else.
Dani, what you are saying, I rarely hear from real estate investors or from the gurus, because usually people do blame everyone else but themselves for wrong choices.
Of course.
And like any risky investment, it might be a stock on a pink sheet or some esoteric stock there. It might be very volatile. It has risks associated. And if you can stand the volatility and the problems and the risks associated with this investment, then maybe you are ready to go all the way for challenging parts of the city and challenging properties. But look, I rarely see investors, especially the new ones, not the experienced, but the new ones, that really understand that rental property is not a property. It's a rental business. And you need to treat this Say again?
You've been listening to my podcast. I always say I call it a tiny business.
You said that? I didn't hear that, but okay. Great minds think alike.
By the way, it's the perfect tiny business because nowhere as a business owner, you have a very clear, here is the business, the property. Your business has one client, and that client is signing up to be your client and adheres to the rules. As a business, you never sign up your clients like this. And then you have one employee or a part-time employee or a subcontractor called the property manager. And I tell my clients, the property managers, the good ones, are people. They have multiple clients, and they don't know which client is going to behave in what situation in different situations. Like one wants to immediately start eviction, and one says, wait. Talk to the tenant and see if you can work it out. The property manager doesn't know which client will behave in which way, but it's your responsibility. It's your business, your tiny business. It's not your property manager.
Love it.
You need to supervise, make sure they're fine. And I teach my clients, I say, and don't wait for your property manager, which is AKA your employee, your part-time employee. It's not your property manager. Don't let them do mistake and you be disappointed or expecting it. Completely different narrative. You call the property manager every once in a while, say, hey, remember you need to do this, or I just want to make sure that you didn't forget about this. I call it set up your property manager, AKA your employee, to succeed, to success because it's your asset, not theirs. So all of a sudden, this entire conversation with your employee is different.
It's different.
You're not trying to see what they fail. You're trying to see how you can empower them to succeed in your best interest.
I wish most of the real estate investors would understand this specific thing, that rental property is a business, and as a business, it should be attracting the right clientele, the right customers you want to attend your business, okay? Those people are paying you a recurring monthly revenue for the experience of housing. This is where they raise their families. This is where they build their memories. And unless you want to invest into this property, it's like buying a restaurant, okay? You can buy a very cheap restaurant, which is failing, whatever, for a good deal. But if you don't know how to create the menu, you don't know how to serve good food, you have no customer service approach, then this restaurant is going to bust, or it's going to attract certain people, which will create troubles for you. So this mindset of, hey, I'm owning a business and I want to run it as any other business that I might be owning, like a store, like a restaurant.
Exactly.
And yes, I have a CEO. I hired a manager who runs that business for me. But this CEO or this manager can't really take a super crappy type of business with a crappy owner mindset, with a slum landlord mindset, and make it the polished diamond.
Right.
And usually property managers are not creating the problems. They're trying to solve the problems that are popping up every day, right?
Absolutely. It's exactly the case. And this is exactly, I always use those analogies. I use actually the pizza parlor versus, not a restaurant because it's more complicated to simplify, illustrate. And Daniel, we're diving into this aspect. I'm in the process of finishing my clients, when they buy with us, for more than 10 years, probably 12, 15, only our clients, not open to the public, give them, as soon as they buy the first property, we give them what I call the owner crash course. The owner crash course is a video, 45 minutes, checklist, an Excel file with checklist of things you need to make sure with your property right off the closing, and a guide. And the owner crash course says, here are the typical mistakes, problems, issues that will come up with the management of your property. If you're aware of them,
Which
you're aware of
definitely will come up.
if you're aware of them, when you know something will happen and you are expecting it, you're less surprised. And here's how you can avoid it for happening to begin with, right? And when I introduced that owner crash course about 10 years ago, maybe 12, I don't remember exactly, the number of support calls that I was receiving right after 80%, 80%, right?
Wow.
What did I do? I calibrated their expectations. I mentioned what are the classical fail points and suggested ways how to mitigate in advance. Now, on the top of that, I do twice a year reminding them, here is the things you should be doing as an owner. Property management is part of it. Insurance, property taxes, this, that. Just so I don't let my clients let their guard down with their property, not the property management, which is one aspect of it. Twice a year, a reminder. Take those two things. As of the past few months, I meshed them in, and I created a new guide for my owners. And you know what I call it? I call it extreme ownership, because I want to kick my clients in the butt because I think they're not doing enough, right? Although they have all those tools, I think they're not. And extreme ownership for me means it is in your best interest not to, to take your ownership position to the next level. It doesn't mean you need to be harsh with the property manager. It doesn't mean you need to be difficult. It just means what you need to do better and more to make sure your investment is not just successful, is super successful, right?
Dani, one other, no, that's amazing. I mean, that's great, calibrating the expectations and the real understanding, that the investment you have made can be mitigated, the risk of it, so much by the employees you have. Eventually, choosing the right property, choosing the right investment strategy, and then, of course, having the right team around you is a key to success. But one thing that I mentioned before, with everything that we teach the new people about the amazing ROIs, amazing cap rates, okay, or amazing whatever, usually comes from a lot of rules of thumb. Allocate that much to maintenance, allocate that much to this, allocate that much to that. CapEx, that's really the rule of thumb. It's great rule of thumbs, but people forget those rule of thumbs. Actually, they remember them, and they think it's a set in stone type of number. And then there is a reality.
Yeah, of course.
What are the examples? Okay, because look, this show is not about to tell people, hey, don't invest in real estate. It's not exactly that. Real estate investing is a great store of value if someone got confused, but we want to make sure that people are aware of everything around it. And basically, it seems like a passive investment. People think of real estate as passive. Being a manager, I can say it's everything but passive, but it can be much more passive than what you actually can experience in certain cases. So my question to you would be, what are those rule of thumbs that people need to be aware that sometimes they might be different?
I'm not sure I follow. What do you mean by different? Different rule of thumb, or different people, how they respond to those rule of thumb?
The reality. Sometimes you say, I don't know, allocate 5, 7, 10% for repairs and maintenance. And then it becomes something else. Your water heater goes out and your AC goes out and whatever goes out. How should they think about it?
I'll tell you how I tackle this point, because that comes up a lot. Yeah. And there's multiple ways how to tackle it. First of all, you probably need to acknowledge that a lot of your clients, it sounds like mine, are very much, you tell me, Silicon Valley type of engineers that Excel. No matter that I know Excel it can go anywhere, but when it comes to real estate, it's set in stone, as if the Excel is set in stone, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So the first, and I get it a lot, right? Just quick story. One of my clients from Silicon Valley bought a property and rented it out. And then a while after, 6 months or a year later, we talked, and somehow he said, but I just want to make sure the analysis is accurate, because last time it wasn't accurate. We got less of a rent than what you put on the Excel. As if that is a guarantee. Okay. And really? How much less rent did you get then versus the Excel? He says it was a lot, $50 less. And I couldn't help
50
myself. I started laughing. And he said, why are you laughing? He got offended. I said, listen, I like you, but I want to tell you something. Any day someone calls me and they say they get $50 within that what we said, it's a great day in the office. It's an amazing day in the office. That means what we did is perfect, right? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, listen, this is not exact science. This is data, right? The market will dictate what the actual rent would be, how long it's going to take to rent. We may have to kind of play around, trial and error a little bit. Maybe there's more competition, less competition. Who knows, right? We analyzed 3 months ago. Things change. Oh, and he goes, okay, now I get it. So he realized he was $50, right? I know you probably feel the same.
It's a mindset of a business owner. And when you run a business, things change in the macroeconomy, on the local thing, everywhere.
Not the engineer for Silicon Valley. Excel is an Excel. Everything has to, as if. So for me, it starts with it's a couple of layers here. First of all, this is when we train our agents and my team to put the analysis, the Excel that there is very important how you approach the Excel. And our approach is realistic case scenario with a little bit conservatism. Meaning, I'm not going to the best case and I'm not going to the worst case, because I have been to the worst case scenario analysis and I have a cemetery full of great deals I didn't do. Why? Not a single property investment will pass the worst case scenario. Not a single
Nothing
one.
qualified.
So obviously those two don't work. I need to be realistic. And then I tell the team and teach the agent, just build in some buffers. So you think the rent is $1,500? How about you put $1,400, $1,450, $1,375? Don't kill the deal. You think the expenses are like this, put it, add some buffer. So when we produce the Excel, we produce it as a buffer with a little bit of buffers, right? We don't take it to the extreme. That's one. Number two, again, teaching, educating, explaining. I don't care on a single year activity. I don't care on the first year. I don't care on a single year, because HVAC is a once in not in 20 years. Roof, all those things are not going to show. So I'm giving it a monthly representation. But, when someone called me saying, I just had this conversation with one of my clients. It was a very hard year. We had to, replace the HVAC. Oh, she said, I had to replace the HVAC this year and the other property. I said, listen, I just want to remind you for a moment. I know this has been a tough year for me too. I had a lot of expenses. We are not even mid-March. It's been a tough year for me too on some of my properties, with expenses. However, what did that property do in the past 10 years or so, or 8 years? And how is this, performing for you? And we expected those things to happen. So you got to have, as a business owner, the multi-year vision, and don't focus on right now the tough year that you're having. I don't say it's pleasant, but big picture, right? Big picture. You're focused. I know, Daniel, from doing it for so many years, the toughest month or period in an investor's life, especially the beginner, is when they close and the house is not getting listed within a month-ish.
Of course.
That
a lot of emotions there.
Complaining, it's devastating. They're starting to doubt themselves. I get those phone calls, and I can tell you I have the magic tool to solve this. The magic tool. That's maybe two things that I do always. Number one, I get on the call and I speak to them and I put things in perspectives and I tell them, no guarantee, but I tell you, it will get rented. I have not seen the house that didn't get rented, and we may need to drop it, by another $100 or $200, even more. It will get rented. Hang in there. The house is great. The location is great. We don't buy crap. Be patient. The way I answer and say it with the confidence, it puts them at ease. I can hear. It puts them at ease. The guy that they depended on is telling them, hang in there, and guess what? It gets rented. The second thing, I take the time to check the listings, to see what I don't like about the listing, to provide the property management or the listing agent some feedback. Sometimes it's perfect. Many times, it's not. I can polish it. So those suggestions and ideas that I provide from my experience are not going to make the difference. But you know what? I want perfect. I want
psychology.
And
It's
then
all around the god. It's like, what's your alternative? You can invest in S&P 500, and then what? Would you check every day, day by day, the fluctuation of the stock or the ETF?
different behavior,
You need to look at the
it's
yearly.
crazy. It's different behavior, different approach, as if those Excels are like, I don't know, guaranteed. No matter how many times, no guarantee. They understand. By the way, when I talk to them at the beginning and I tell them this is usually the tough spot for investors, especially beginner, because they have not built a trust in the process kind of a scenario. When I get the one who's bought a few years ago and now he's facing his second or third, different conversation.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's usually different.
Listen, it's been 3 months. I'm nervous. Can you do something about it? But you know what? He knows it will get rented. Different conversation. But I get it. I never dismiss it as, they don't understand. I always like cuddle, hang in there. Let me see what else I can do. And then,
No, definitely. I think point number one that you said, your house is going to be rented eventually. It might take another couple of weeks, maybe a little bit down. But if it's a good property, okay, in a good location, it will be rented. I mean, that's for sure. Question to you. We are also seeing quite a lot of investors, who were taught by various courses and whatever, put as little as you can down payment, leverage yourself with a crazy mortgage, okay? Then you get $100 of free cash flow or something like that. And eventually, here is where we see quite a bit of people who have hardship to replace this water heater. And it becomes like a downhill thing because they are so leveraged.
Yeah.
And someone promised them $300 of cash flow, whatever cash flow. It's again the same thing with Excels.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to someone like a new investor? Should they go with like the most leverage they can go, or?
Okay. Listen, rule of thumb as an answer. Before we dive to specific, we may not dive to specific scenarios and situations, but just a rule of thumb. We almost always go right these days with the interest rate we're facing. The magic, the sweet spot is 30% down, 70% mortgage. It's only in the past month that I've seen 2 properties that we started considering to go back to 25, 25.75, right? So I tell my clients, here's what's going to happen. If you put lower down payment, borrowed amount is higher, your monthly payment is higher, your interest right now is high, so it's not going. So you're going to be in a negative cash flow situation scenario. Be ready with the expenses and everything. So we factor in the expenses. So now Daniel, when I got started, everything we do was high leverage, 5% down, 10% down, negative cash flow all day long. Right? I know negative cash flow. Nobody knows negative cash flow from the scars better than I do because I've lived it. I've lived it myself. I lived it so much. I know how to comprehend, strategize, incorporate negative cash flow in certain situations. That maybe we don't going to dive into it because it's really specific. But I scare the person out. I say, tell me right now, if you buy one property and you have $300 negative cash flow because of the settings you set up, right, for yourself.
Now you own a property for $300. What's wrong with it?
Hmm?
Now you own a property for $300, basically.
Yeah, I mean, but then I want to stress test it. I say, can you handle it mentally and financially? Because you still need to bring the $300 from somewhere. You can, great. What up? I take it one step further. If you have $300 negative cash flow and you have enough salary to cover it, easy, right? It's in before taxes. What happens if you lose your job? Right? And all of a sudden, so I put a lot of stress on this point specifically to make sure they're super comfortable with it, with a high recommendation to avoid it, using my personal story to kind of illustrate. And then usually the people are like, okay, now I get it. I'd rather be in a more, safer situation setting. And I tell them, I'd rather you buy a smaller number of houses, more safely, more stable, without jeopardizing your other houses because of your cash flow and sort of that. Is it convincing? I may be unappealing to some people because, it's easier to get
Can you get closer to the mic?
It's maybe easier to get attracted to the no money down crazy enough, which I think I've tried so many times to do no money down. I'm still a failure on that.
All right.
It's like a theoretical. I'm sure people do it, but I came close. 20 years, I've attempted multiple times. I think I came close to once to do no money down. There's always a catch. There's always a trade-off. I rather, if I were you and I'm getting a client, they're already highly leveraged, you're putting yourself in a problematic situation because every dollar now is amplified because, oh my God, I'm losing. The client set up the situation that's putting him in a very stressful situation and he's blaming you. So you need to carry the stress of a not really fitting or good scenario of financing because he put 20% down and his cash flow. What cash flow? Negative cash flow. So now he's trying. And by the way, when I get a client who goes into that scenario after all the explanation, I said, now you need to mentally understand it. If you're coming back in a year and say, oh my God, I'm bleeding $300 a month. I'm like, remember that's by design. We came to that. And the problem you will have with that is that other people will come to you and say, oh my God, you're bleeding $300 a month. What are you doing? You're stupid. Who gave you that? They'll come and people will eat your ear with this negative cash flow and will doubt your confidence. Now listen to me and listen carefully. We are going into this negative cash flow scenario very open-minded, very understanding, very analytical. And when those noises could come in the future, shut them down because we're doing something very, very specific to you and you see the benefit. And if you don't remember the benefit, what do? Call me. I'll remind you the benefit, right? So even if
Dani,
yeah,
people will spend gladly $300, $400, $500 on a car or something else, but not $100 of negative cash flow to own an asset which is appreciating over time, okay? And is a much greater store of value than a no asset like a car or something like that.
When you have a $500 a month car, your friends are like, oh my God, look at you, nicely. And when you're losing...
You're rich.
Yeah. When you're bleeding, right? Even if you did it, on purpose, by design, $500 on a rental property that's appreciating, and maybe that was your way, the ticket into this world, you're like bad business person because you did a bad investment.
Yeah, exactly.
The opposite.
The opposite, completely the opposite. And then what happens, actually, you said it rightfully, it becomes a point of pressure on the manager who now needs to look for 10 quotes, which are maybe $100 less, but will take so much long time, to come up with those quotes. And the tenant is going to freak out and is going to skip a payment. And it becomes like, a race to the bottom. And at a certain point, we spot those people who are highly leveraged, who are not understanding the basics of real estate investing, trying to basically pass all that pressure either on tenants or on managers. And as a manager, sometimes you are thinking, do I want to be the CEO for this type of an owner? And I can tell you that our company started to strive when we decided to fire certain owners and not to work for them.
Of course, as you should. And I don't know if today you have a clear protocol of onboarding or vetting an owner, but I hope you do. I can tell you that
we made a lot of mistakes. When we started to scale and we scaled to thousands of properties, we came across different portfolios, especially when we acquired traditional property management companies, books of businesses.
Right.
We come across different types of personalities. And part of our playbook is to spot those problematic, what we call personalities, that don't understand that this is a business and you need to invest in your business to attract the right tenants. And we would gladly manage and take care of everything, but we need to know that as an owner, you are committed to provide the same level of experience to your residents. And we want to work for those better people, better investors.
Absolutely.
Rather than...
Absolutely. You know that I'd say maybe 10 years ago, 7 years ago, one of my property managers in Oklahoma City calls me up and said, Danny, I got this client of yours who is abusive, who is very negatively, he's Israeli, very, comes from a very,
direct communication.
The construction industry that is very, that's the culture, so to speak. And he called me up to explain. And then he says, using names that I never heard, nobody ever called me a liar. And he says, if this is the clients you're bringing over, I'm not interested in working with you. And I said, listen, we have good relationship. You know already this is not the type of client. This is highly unacceptable. My next call is to this client, and I will help solve the situation. And, I will take care of the situation, and I will get him out of your system. And then I told the manager, I said, after we resolve it, and I see that everything is relaxed, I'm going to call him and I say, you and I are done. And I did help him through. We got it cleared. And then when everything was quiet down, I called him. I said, David, Dudi, I just want to tell you that I'm always going to be here to help you with this property because I'm committed to what you bought from us. As for future investment together, which you indicated that you would like to do, you and I are done. And he says, what do you mean? He said, I told him, I am putting a lot of time traveling, nurturing conversation to the property managers I work with because they are an integral and important part of our system. And if someone comes in, and I don't care how stressed out you are, and you're calling them names and you're aggressive and abusive, you're pissing all over my relationships. Unacceptable. And because you've done that, you and I are done. And I wish you all the best. It was all nicely done. It's like, okay. Well, he thought I was joking. He called me 6 months later and said, okay, I'm ready for my next one. I said, remember what I told you? We are done. I'm not going to work with you. He says, you really meant it?
That's amazing.
You don't want more business from me? I said, I don't want more business from you because if things get a little bit challenging and this is how you behave, not interested. He was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Look, I mean, people are different, and that's part of the challenges of managing residential, single-family landscape. You are managing, we are managing thousands of units, so you have thousands of different tenants with their personality. On the other hand, thousands of owners with everyone with a different scar and different personality and different promise and different perception about life, okay? And every house is different, and every property is different, built in a different time, different condition, and resides in a different jurisdiction. There is a lot of regulation going on on us as property managers. And you wouldn't believe how much regulators in certain areas are intervening with our business.
I do.
If it's to audit our books, to audit our books, or every tenant that wants to stretch a little bit more goes and complains to the attorney generals and divisions and just name it. So it's very important to pick the right investment and the right owner and the right property. Okay. And definitely it's one of the most successful, I think, parameters is picking the right thing and not really believing. Say again?
And it's also very challenging to spot the problem. I mean, sometimes it's obvious that this owner is problematic. That's easy. And sometimes you have easy time spotting the nice people who you'll have good relationship with. It's the ones that kind of sneak in that you can't say until they face a situation. Then all of a sudden, the true beautiful personality comes up.
So this is where we want to educate people that real estate investing has a lot of nuances, has a lot of unknowns around it. It's great on one hand. On the other hand, be prepared to various unknowns that are going to happen. And since you are an investor, you need to have some stamina for risks, for unknown futures, for shit that's going to happen for sure at certain point.
Sure.
And for sure, you're going to have an issue with your water heater, AC, whatever. And for sure, at certain point, your tenant is not going to pay rent. For sure. There's no other question about it, right? For sure. The question just when. So you have to be mentally prepared. And this is why it's so important for me to talk to people like you who invest a lot in education, not to sugarcoat this thing, but to tell people the reality. Okay? It's a business of people. It's a business of a lot of moving parts, and there are challenges. You can mitigate a lot of those challenges, but there will be.
Absolutely.
And it's damn important to educate, because everywhere, I know I'm listening to a lot of podcasts. I've been on a lot of podcasts. You usually speak to people and they sugarcoat everything.
Oh my God.
Real estate is it's passive. It's great. You get some cash flow. You have enough to put down, and then you do it again. Rinse and repeat. BRRRR, whatever, strategies. Great.
BS,
right? BS, exactly. No,
Yeah.
so we are here to educate people. If you had to give me like one or two most important lessons learned from your experience, what would that be? Like, if I'm an investor, aside of understanding that Excel is Excel and business plans are business plans that can change, everything is great. What should I really focus on and not give up on when I'm starting to think about real estate investing? What would that be?
So from your end or from the investor end?
Investor end. Forget about me as a manager. We deal with all the personalities. I'm thinking from the investor standpoint. We want to educate those guys, right?
Yeah. As an investor, my approach over the many years of ups and downs and seeing, and one of the things that I like to do, besides standing in the position that I'm standing as an investor or guiding others, etc., is I like to I watch how my clients behave, right? All the time, as much as I can, to put myself on the sideline, watching into the situation and watching how my clients, how they behave when they make decisions, how they behave when there's vacancy, how they behave when there is some problem this or problem that. I really watch and I want to learn. And the interesting or the privilege that I have, I've been watching real estate investors like this, not just engaging, but watching from within for 20 years. I see patterns. I see patterns emerging all the time. Like and now some of those patterns, they're 2, 3, 4 years take to see. So
after
one cycle is 4 years. So you need to see it 3 times in order to understand, okay, there's a pattern, right? It's crazy. So for those investors that I'll start by saying, first of all, the secret sauce, in my opinion, my secret sauce,
we want just the secret sauce. Give us the secret sauce.
My approach, 2 things.
Yeah.
Buy quality, hold long term. Buy quality, hold long term. Daniel, I say it all the time, and you know what people do? Exactly the opposite. Not my clients.
Yeah, but quality has lower cap rates. It appears lower on the Excel.
Listen, you can say whatever you want. If you're listen, okay, quality long term, that's one, okay?
That's one, okay.
That's 2, but are 1, secret sauce. Second thing, super important. Don't focus on the cash flow only. When we look at the properties, I'm looking at 3 growth vectors, right? Cash flow or cash on cash is one, or returns. That's definitely there, but it's one. Important one, but not the only one. 2, a little bit of appreciation, not 8% that the market did last year. Let's just use 3.5% a year on average of appreciating. Your asset on average over time, long term, will appreciate, no guarantee, more than that, every year. So your asset is appreciating 3.5%. Some people say, I don't believe appreciation because I don't know if it's going to be there. I agree. I've been in that mindset for years as well. How about this? Instead of basing or speculating it will appreciate 6 or 7 or 10 or whatever percent like it did in the past few years, don't do that. That doesn't make sense. But is it 0? Is it really 0? So how about you use a small number?
Adjusted for inflation.
All right. So cash flow, appreciation, and the fact that you are buying with a mortgage, in most cases, your cash flow factors in mortgage payments that include interest, but a little bit of principal. So that means year after year, you're slowly growing your equity from a little bit of appreciation and a little bit of principal reduction, right? This is not money in your pocket. This is money in the walls. It's yours when you sell or refinance or do something like this. It's waiting for you. So don't ignore those things. Because I see people are so focused on the cash flow. You're missing. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong. I love cash flow. But remember that maybe right now you're in the phase of building wealth in order to get to the point that in 10, 15, 20 years, you have multiple properties.
It's so important what you are saying.
Paid off.
So smart, man. So smart.
Cash flow is there. It's coming. Wait. Be patient. Very patient. But while you're building, if you're on your journey to the way that you have 5, 10, 20 properties all paid off, which will take time, right? While you're on your journey, the cash flow is a pain point. So if you're only focusing on that, you're missing the point, in my opinion, right? In my humble opinion. And I do have clients that know and heard that, what I just told you, exactly like that. And every few years they call me and say, can you remind me again why the cash flow is not? Seriously, can you remind me why it's not only about the cash flow? Oh, okay, thank you. Because they forget, my clients who know my philosophy, they forget, at least they remember to call and ask. And I tell them, it's not about the cash. Cash flow is important.
Dani, I love what you are saying. I think people forget those things. They forget that they're building long-term wealth.
Exactly.
Real estate is the #1 asset class in the world. I think it's like $500 trillion globally that attracts as a store of value going forward. And you need to remember, it's not about an immediate gratification.
Yeah,
you are building wealth for the generations to come, for your kids, for yourself, for your retirement. And there might be a shitty year. There might be an amazing year going forward. Some markets might appreciate faster. Certain years you might appreciate faster. Certain years you might appreciate lower. It's the reality. And sometimes those excels are disconnected from reality for a year or two, maybe. And some years they're amazing. Like, our product is basically, we underwrite the profit line for rental properties. So we generate like a monthly one rate fee that protects the vacancies, protects the delinquencies, and takes care of all the repairs, including turnovers, for a 1 monthly flat rate. So the investors can feel a very, call it transparent, predictable type of investment on one hand. But on the other hand, we can't qualify every property for that plan. And it is a great fit for people that think long-term and think nice properties, better properties, okay? Because you can't take a class C- property, dress it up with this plan and make it an A-class property.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Nothing is going to work. Nothing is going to work. I mean, it's going to be hard. So that's the connection to reality. Reality sometimes is challenging. But I love what you are saying. Think long-term. Forget about the cash flow. Sometimes you need to think about it. Even if there isn't like out-of-pocket money, but you own an asset for $100, $200, $300, you own an asset.
True. Very true. And which appreciate.
You spend more on Starbucks a month.
Yeah.
Right?
Very true. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So true.
Cool. Dani, look, it's a pleasure talking to you. I mean, we can talk for hours. You have so much. We'll probably need to have another one specifically focus on something. But just to conclude here, which markets are you really targeting at this point? Which you think are the better markets?
I'll answer it in two ways. So the traditional method, we are very active in the Middle Tennessee, which is greater Nashville. It's not just Nashville. It's a stretch of probably 6, 7, 8 million people from Chattanooga to Clarksville. So that's one.
Amazing.
Birmingham, Alabama, Metro Birmingham, Alabama, Metro St. Louis, Metro Kansas City. Those are the mainly active ones. We do have activities in Dallas, Fort Worth, in Houston, and Tampa, and Orlando, and Atlanta as well. So that's where the activity, the main active, the less active markets. But within those regions, what we are also doing in the past several months is trying to find those more, let's just say, creative financing deals that are mitigating the challenge of the cash flow, such as VA loan assumptions. We started doing MTRs, midterm rentals, and hybrid rentals, we call it, in Atlanta. We have 2 properties active already that are, it's like an Airbnb, not targeting the Airbnb traditional vacationer or short-term tenant, but rather people that are going through insurance situation, or one of the tenants we have now is fully renovating their house, and they're renting at more than twice the rental rate of the market, a fully furnished house, anywhere from a month to 2 to 3 to 6. So all of a sudden, you get that property that would have generated $2,000 on a traditional long-term rental. It's now generating $4,000, $4,500 in rent. Some of the expenses are higher, right? You have to remember that some of the expenses are a bit higher. So it's not exactly apples to, like, Utilities are shifted to the owner. Insurance is a little bit higher. Management is a little bit higher. Even when everything settles, my clients do 4 to 6 times more the cash flow on the same piece of property.
Which geo you wouldn't go? Which you wouldn't advise people to go? Is there any market like that now for you?
There is, first of all, there is probably 2 that I am it's not personal that I don't like those areas. I actually do like those areas as a person. I think as an investment, they're not good. One is Austin, Texas, which a lot of people, I've been saying no to Austin for 10 years. And I have clients who came to me, started investing, complaining and bitching about the cash flow. And then I found out they bought, not with us, a property in Austin for probably more that they purchased with us, and it's generating a negative cash flow. And sometimes if I talk to them after the fact, they're like, and I come, by the way, how is the property in Austin doing? Not so good. But like,
is that because there is an excess? Because there is an excess of supply now? There's a lot of new construction there.
Before COVID, was already appreciating quite a bit. Was a little bit more expensive than the other 2 sisters. Houston and Dallas. You would get Austin, nice. Listen, Austin is nice. Don't get me wrong. Beautiful, love it, excellent. I've been there. That has nothing to do with what I'm saying. Quality of life, perfect. Put aside. I'm an investor.
Yep.
The simple math of, we talked about cash flow a moment ago. I am not against cash flow, right? Don't get me wrong. But when I go to a market which is very expensive and relatively the rents are low, as an investor, why would I not consider Dallas versus Austin, for example, where the same house, as much as we can do apples to apples, will probably cost about $100,000 less, and the rent will be not half, right?
The same.
So the same, or even a little bit low, but higher ratio. So why would I go to Austin? By the way, in the past 10 years, don't quote me on the numbers, Dallas-Fort Worth grew population-wise by an entire Austin. You get what I'm saying?
Wow.
The amount of people, it's like everybody in Austin moved to Dallas-Fort Worth in 10 years, right? Or something around those numbers, right? Austin grew as well. It's not that they didn't. But Dallas-Fort Worth probably grew by 1 million, 1.5 million people or more in those 10 years. Austin did not grow by 1 million people, right? It did grow.
Probably everyone is from California, probably.
Probably. So what I'm saying is quality of life, perfect. If you decide to move there for your own, because it's whatever, buy. Absolutely. Investment-wise, can you make better decisions? Absolutely. Let me give you another one that I have a bit of a problem with.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma City. Now,
Oklahoma
City. By the way, I invested in the Austin market up to 2008 or so. So I know that area. I knew that area. I'm no longer there. Oklahoma City, great market. I was active in Oklahoma City with properties myself, 2005 to 2015, 10 years. Great teams. What did I see? Those 10 years, every single market we invested in, which was not Oklahoma City, the value of the properties appreciated much higher, faster, better, and rents. Does it make Oklahoma City bad? No. Does it mean that it's always closing the list of the markets where every single market is doing better, much better, every single one? For me, I owe it to my clients to send them, to help them go in the right direction, not in the market that I already proven to be doing not bad, definitely not as good as the everyone. So I stopped. For that reason, I stopped. And I still see people who are buying in Oklahoma City. Again, great market, great area. As an investor, can I do better? Yes, absolutely yes, just because I've seen it so many times. And when I hear someone who's going to Oklahoma City, I usually ask, why did you go there? Oh, my friend went there. So they followed the herd.
Dani, pleasure talking to you, man. So much knowledge, so much experience. If you are looking to buy properties, this is your guy for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Let's keep in touch. And definitely we need to have another session like that. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate you coming.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Always. Thank you.